Okay, so we have a quick update on the beef with Andrew Tate. And I know some of you are probably thinking, Liz, I'm tired of hearing about this. We talked about this 2 different times last week. And I hear you. I totally hear you. But stick with me on this for a minute, because I have one of the most important points that I have made yet to make to you tonight based on some guy by the name of Mike Crispi. I've never heard of him before this. Maybe you guys had heard of him. You probably have. He has a show on Rumble, apparently. He is a defender of Andrew Tate, and he made a video totally destroying Liz Wheeler after my interactions with Andrew Tate last week. Andrew Tate then retweeted this video of Mike Crispi, and I would like to address a couple of the points in this guy's video, not to get into a tit for tat, I'm not interested in that, but because this video embodies one of the existential questions that you and I are facing as conservatives in our modern culture today. In fact, I would argue that what I'm about to explain, what this video is a perfect example of, is one of the main reasons why conservatives and why the Republican Party as a whole, I like to separate conservatives from the Republican Party a little bit, but why we as a whole have been losing the culture war time after time after time after time for decades now. It's because there's an existential question that we, within the conservative movement, within the Republican Party, have not sat down and hashed out. Again, not in a tit-for-tat kind of way, not in a someone totally destroyed someone else, but we haven't sat down and had an intellectual conversation about this. This disagreement that I'm talking about, the root of this disagreement between some conservatives or some red-pilled people who might not be as political, but who like Andrew Tate and me, the root of this disagreement is because we don't have a clear-cut definition on what is a real man. What is true masculinity? Andrew Tate offers his version of it. I'm offering a version that differs from Andrew Tate. But it comes back to this question, what is masculinity? What is it? Why do men exist? What is the purpose of men that differs from the purpose of women? And this takes us to an even deeper question, if you will indulge me being philosophical for a second. What is the definition of right? Because it's pretty easy to look at something and say, oh, it's wrong. We can look at a drag queen story hour and we can all say, yeah, that's wrong, that's immoral, it's gross, it's perverted. But what is the definition of right? I've noticed, even among people who are generally in agreement on political and cultural issues, that there is not a consensus among us on what the definition of right is, even while we agree mostly on the definition of wrong. So, for example, when it comes to Andrew Tate, the biggest problem with Andrew Tate, of course, is pornography. In fact, you could frame this conversation as being primarily about pornography and about the culture that pornography creates among young men who consume it. And you'll notice that Andrew Tate defenders, including Mike Crispi, dismiss Andrew Tate's pornography business as simply being a webcam business. They never use the word pornography. They never define what is pornography. What's it used for? What impact does it have on society, on young men specifically, on families, on marriages, on masculinity? They never want to focus on the question, well, if a woman consents, gives her consent to be in pornography, and if it's legal, does that make it moral? This is an existential question. I know it's an uncomfortable question. Some people might be like, whoa, we're talking about Andrew Tate. I don't want to sit here and talk about porn. This is not all about porn. That's an example of what I want to talk about. Because what I want to do today is I don't want to offer just a defensive analysis of what's wrong with Andrew Tate. I don't want to just destroy Andrew Tate at every single turn, or I don't want to get into a tit for tat with this guy that made the video. That's not the point of what I'm doing today. But I want to offer instead a constructive idea of what real masculinity is. Because conservatives are never going to win the culture war if we simply are the party of no. If we're simply looking at wrong, correctly recognizing wrong, but then we have nothing to offer instead. So many of you guys, after I started interacting with Andrew Tate on Twitter, a lot of you were like, well, who should we look to? What role model is a good example of what real masculinity is? And I gave an answer that I meant. It wasn't an answer that's wrong, but I want to expand on this question because this is a valid question, a good question, and I'm glad you asked this question. So that's what I want to do today. So let's start by watching a little bit of this video from Mike Crispi, if we could bring that up on the screen.
Liz Wheeler said Andrew Tate is evil. He is an antichrist figure. He prescribes poison, materialism, pornography, the exploitation of women, the worship of self. Young men should reject him.
Okay, hold on just a second. So that's where I want to pause it for a second, because if we can bring my tweet up on the screen as well. Mike Crispi did not read that tweet in its entirety, and it's only 280 characters. It's not like this was too long here. This is what I said. I said, Andrew Tate is evil. He's an antichrist figure. He diagnoses a cultural ill accurately, that our society vilifies men. Then for an antidote, he prescribes poison, materialism, pornography, exploitation of women, worship of self. Young men should reject him. Mike Crispi skipped that middle sentence, the sentence where it says he diagnoses a cultural ill accurately, that society vilifies men. And it's important not to skip that because this is what makes Tate dangerous. It's not just that Andrew Tate is acting immorally. There are a lot of people all around the world acting immorally. The reason it's dangerous when Andrew Tate acts immorally is because he's using the pretense of morality, meaning he's identifying a wrong correctly to lure young men in, but then he's essentially offering a bait and switch. That's what makes him dangerous. So let's restart the tape.
Christ figure. Now, Andrew Tate has said, and he's talked about it, that his former business, he's been very open about it, this webcam business that he did, he's been out of it for a number of years. He became a Muslim, he converted, he's religious now, all that stuff. He talks about it, and he says he's not proud of it, but he did it, he made money on it, fine.
Oh, it doesn't seem fine to me. Let's just stop for a second on that phrase, webcam business. So what is this webcam business? Let's define it. What is this webcam business? It's pornography. What's pornography? Pornography is sexual exploitation of women. It's women on camera. In this case, it was not men and women together. Women performing sexual acts on a live stream, on a camera for men to purchase so that they, in a voyeuristic sense, could achieve sexual gratification by objectifying these women.
Hi guys, it's Liz Wheeler. Don't forget to watch my show, The Liz Wheeler Show, every night at 7 p.m. on the First TV. You can download the free First TV app, or you can visit thefirsttv.com/Liz and start watching today.